What is happening, people? Happy New Year and Merry 2023. Welcome to our American football podcast in the End Zone UK. Christmas is over and we are into another year already. Time flies when you are watching football, and we are back 1 week away from the end of the season and into the playoffs. We're recapping the Christmas week, the New Year week, week 17 of the NFL season. I'm your host, Dom, and across the mic from me, it is my co-host, Mr. Big Dave. Dave, is it a new year, new me scenario for you this year?
Nope, still going to be a grumpy fuck all year. Good to go. Happy we're in 2023. Happy we're approaching the playoffs for once, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later on. But no, I will be staying exactly the same. New Year's resolutions are for weirdos.
Good stuff. Well, I'm going to have to challenge you that a little bit later, because I need some New Year's resolutions for the New York Football Giants. But for now, we'll crack on with the episode. And we missed last week. It was one of those weeks where we had games on a Saturday. We even had games on Christmas Day, all sorts of different game weeks all over the place. And I managed to also contract the dreaded lurgy. It wasn't COVID. I tested for that. I've still never had it, but I definitely collected a new one over the Christmas break. So we didn't cover week 16. We will talk a little bit about it as it comes up, but we are now into the penultimate game week, week 17, which started on Thursday last week with the Cowboys taking on the Titans in a very forgettable game. And we moved into then the second to last week of our regular season Sundays, with some mega playoff implications, which we'll talk about later, and also some dramatic news. Now, as usual this week, listeners, we are bringing you our famous Slap or Sign segment. We'll recap on some of the big games from this week, and me and Dave will give some New Year's resolutions that our teams should be making for 2023. However, first off, I'm calling this podcast episode Prayers Up, because of the news that is all over the NFL this week and all over sports news actually this week. And it kind of slides us into our regular gloomy injury segment, although this is more than just an injury, Dave. Damar Hamlin, Buffalo Bills player, defensive back, is in critical condition, basically, after a cardiac arrest on the field during the game against the Cincinnati Bengals. A tough one to see.
Yeah, nobody wants to see that, and I think it's definitely the worst thing that I've ever seen on a game or whatever. I mean, I wasn't going to watch the game. I was going to watch the game in the morning, and I woke up to try and find the game on the Game Pass, and it wasn't there. Thought I'd not paid my bill or something. And then when I started Googling it, trying to find out what was happening, it was all over Instagram, all over Twitter. So I had a quick read up on it. Yeah, it's bad times, definitely bad news. Bad for the players having to see one of their teammates get CPR and essentially get shocked on the field to bring him round. Thankfully, they brought him round and got him to the hospital. So, yeah, bad times for the Bills, definitely, and for the league in general, because it puts a lot of things up in the air now.
It does, doesn't it? And I guess we'll talk about those in a minute. Just to focus on the condition of the player. First off, it was a freak accident, I suppose. I mean, we see, how many hits do you see in a regular season? Thousands upon thousands of tackles and big hits and, concussions and people falling from various heights in the air. But this was one of the more tame tackles that you would see. And somehow, in some scientific way, the tackle managed to stop the heart of Damar Hamlin, and he was taken to hospital. And he was revived twice on the pitch, I believe. So they managed to get his heart beating again on the pitch, but he was out for a long time. And I mean, seeing him go down normally and get up normally, and then immediately just pass out on his feet was just a freak just a freak thing to see. We obviously see concussions happen, and you see it. You know, a player's head bounces off the turf or bounces off another player, and you think, oh, and he's in la la land with his Bambi legs, and you think, yeah, okay, he's concussed. This was just a straight out, you know, and as you say, it's not nice for the players to witness, and rightly so. The game was stopped. I think both coaches decided to say that was enough, no more game, and it does have its implications. But yeah, really tough thing to see on the pitch, and certainly not something that you wish upon any player. I think that's I don't want to speculate, but it could be his career over.
Yeah. Would you want to put yourself through? I mean, it's when you're that player, you probably want to get back out of it if he can sort of like come round to it and get himself healthy again.
You saw something earlier. You were telling me just before the podcast, actually, so it wasn't just a random cardiac arrest like, you know, you would have in a day-to-day life. This was induced by the tackle, wasn't it?
Yeah. So there was a video on YouTube. Some doctor guy. Apparently, he's quite famous for, as soon as something happens, like an injury happens, this basically describes what happens, and he was describing how this happens, which I definitely don't think it's common, but I think he said it's more likely to happen in a baseball game.
Okay.
I don't know why,
where the ball hits you directly in the chest or something.
Essentially, that's what it is. Yes, it's a blow to your chest, and it interrupts the rhythm of the heart. So when the heart pumps and then sort of like squeezes again, or something like that. I can't. I mean, I ain't got a PhD.
Yeah, it's not Dr. Dave.
Nah, it's not. More like Dr. Doolittle here. But I think it's essentially it's an accident that can happen, and it's a freak accident. Like
1 in a millisecond type accident, right?
Yeah. So it's nothing to do with his health. Like, it could have happened to anybody.
Interesting.
The doctor clearly explains it a little bit more articulately than what I can get it across.
But still, I mean, it is interesting to know that these things can happen, and the amount of, as we said, the amount of tackles that happen in a game and in a season. The fact that this is the first time it's been seen, you know, I don't think anybody's died in it or been seriously fatally injured in this way in a game since the 60s. But it's just crazy that it can happen, that this, you know, we technically as human beings have some form of off switch, which is kind of scary. And as you say, if you're on the receiving end of it, he might not ever want to play again. It's probably something that messes you up. But we are putting prayers up. If you do pray, and if you don't, then just thoughts are with Damar Hamlin, hoping that he gets better soon and that normality can resume in the NFL, because primarily it's about the player and the individual making sure he's all right. But the knock-on effect, Dave, that this is having in the NFL is nuts, because there's so much riding on that game in particular. Both teams are playoff bound. Both teams are fighting for the number 1 seed in the AFC. There's fantasy implications. It's causing a bit of carnage, right?
It is, and we were just sat talking about it before, weren't we? But with it being the end, like the second to last week, I suppose, of the NFL season, what do? Do they play them this week and then push both their games back to the middle of next week? And then, do you know what I mean? They're gonna have to play the later playoff games, I suppose, on the Sunday rather than the Saturday, is what normally happens. But
do you think the game definitely goes ahead?
They're going to play. Yeah, I mean, I would think that the game will go ahead. Yeah, and I think they'll play it on Saturday.
Right.
I think it'll either get played Friday night or Saturday, and then whatever game they were meant to play on Sunday, those games will be pushed back to the middle of next week. So it's probably gives the teams that they were going to play an advantage, as it'd give them extra time. But I would say it's more they'd be more happy to give those teams the advantage of an extra couple of days to prep for them, rather than having to switch fire from preparing for the Bengals, if you're the Bills, and then focusing on whoever they've got this week, and then having to refocus back onto the Bengals. it makes more sense for me that they've scouted each other, they've run the practices to prepare for their offenses and defenses, so they should play that team.
Okay, yeah, no, that does make sense. I think maybe Roger Goodell could get on the phone, Dave, because you're talking a lot of sense here, and I
Well, I was going to
think
text him, but
I think there's a lot of there's obviously going to be a lot of debate around what should and shouldn't happen. Where I do think that I reckon they are considering not playing the game and what implication that could have, whether it be they both get a tie, or somebody takes a loss. I don't think it's necessarily the right thing to do for sure, but I reckon they must be debating it. But I think, like you said, if it's possible, if the opportunity to still play the game is there, they should play it. You know, they can play it in honor of Demar and still go in, you know, full hog, because both of those teams deserve the opportunity for a first round bye in the playoffs, as well as the top of the AFC contention alongside the Chiefs. So we'll see what happens, but also it has fantasy implications. As little as that matters, I suppose, in the scheme of things, it also does matter to those that are in fantasy leagues. And there was many leagues this year, this week, that were playing their final. We were playing our semi-final, and both myself and yourself, Dave, were in the semi-final playing two different opponents. And I believe that, all things considered, if that game would have gone ahead and just finished as normal, myself and yourself would have been meeting in the fantasy playoff final, because you won your week basically, and I had won my week basically. So I guess we just need to see what comes off the back of that as well, with the decisions by the NFL, because that has some important implications, not anywhere near as important as the health of Demar or the actual
yeah,
NFL, but still it does it
yeah,
makes a
no, it
difference.
does. And people have money riding on these leagues and stuff like that, so there's definitely an appetite to find out what's going to happen. Like I say, I'm sort of 60 points clear this week, so it's unlikely that I would have been caught. But your game is on a bit of a knife edge, isn't it? If they give them 0 points,
If they give
it
0 points,
it
yeah,
could cost you.
but
So
should
I
have
mean,
should have
ultimately,
won
I'm
easily,
gonna,
but
yeah. So I'll destroy whoever I play in the final. So it doesn't really matter to me, but I can see why it's an issue for you.
well, you just want to get there, don't you? You want to give yourself every chance. But hopefully, all these decisions will be made off the back of the most important reasons in the NFL, and the most important decisions being that football is football and it continues to play, with the right decisions being made to protect the players and the players' mental states, by cancelling the initial game. So that is good. So prayers up to Demar. That's our usual sort of gloomy injury segment. I don't think it's worth talking about anything else, because that is the number one hotspot in the NFL. Everyone else comes second to a cardiac arrest on the pitch. But we had some good games this week, Dave, and we had some good games last week in week 16. So I think it's probably best that we move into one of our favorite segments. We'll get our hands ready, we'll warm them up. And for this week, we'll go into slap or sign. So, Dave, slap or sign. Last week, there was definitely a few people that would have been very easy to slap. Russell Wilson and the Broncos, to name one, they had an absolute stinker. So before we go into who you're actually going to slap, if we look at how things materialized last week, this was just before Christmas, and some games on Christmas Day, which was the Broncos game. But some teams had bad weeks, severely bad weeks. The Broncos were beaten 51-14 by the Rams and Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield could have got a sign last week, I suppose. Russell Wilson definitely needed a slap. The Packers beat the Dolphins, which was a bit of an upset. The Giants kept it very tight with the Vikings, and the Seahawks got pumped by the Chiefs. But yeah, there was definitely some easy slap or signs last week. But this week, not so easy. I found it. I thought it was quite difficult, actually. So if you could please take me through your AFC sign.
My AFC sign this week, it was quite difficult. Well, some of them were difficult. The AFC I found particularly difficult. The NFC, not so. I went for Devontae Adams.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, did you say sign?
Sign, please. Yeah.
Sign Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
He is an unbelievable talent, and I think that he's, even though he's gone to a Kaka team, they've basically got rid of his best mate at quarterback and Derek Carr and basically told him to go home, and they played Jarrett Stidham, who actually looked really good at quarterback. I'm just trying to find his stats. They played a 49ers team that was basically rolling over everybody, and the Raiders actually had a chance to win the game.
They did.
They were competitive throughout the game.
Mm-hmm.
Forced some turnovers from the 49ers, which we've not really seen. And Stidham had a really good game. He was. I was thinking about signing. If he'd not thrown 2 interceptions, I probably would have signed him.
Yeah, he had a good day. 365 yards, 3 touchdowns for a man that's just stepped into the driver's seat.
Yeah, and to put that amount of points, the Raiders put 34 points onto the Niners and a late, well, it was an overtime field goal, wasn't it, that got the Niners the win. But
yeah. Niners have not given up that amount of points in a long time.
No. Devontae Adams had 153 yards, 2 touchdowns on the day. He went absolutely ballistic. He caught one of the most improbable catches you'll see all year. There's been some good catches this year, but that was something else, that catch that he caught. He just had a great game. It was great to see it.
Yeah, I'm also signing Devontae Adams from the AFC as well, so won't leave you on your own here explaining what kind of a freak this man is. I may as well jump in whilst you're hot, Dave, and say that watching that game against the Niners, against a superior defense to almost every team in the NFL, and Devontae Adams was just having a day, and he's just a freak. He's by far, and I know that we give a lot of props to wide receivers on Slap or Sign, and we sign a few and we slap a few, but Devontae Adams, I think, is just another level ahead of any receiver in the NFL. I don't think it's close. You have Justin Jefferson, who's having a big year because he's coming out as a young rookie with a lot of energy. But Devontae Adams is just unstoppable, like the best receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him going forward, with the fact that Derek Carr's not going to be there. Him pretty much saying in an interview that the only reason he's in Las Vegas with the Raiders is because of Derek Carr. So if they get rid of Derek Carr, I can see him having a situation where he potentially has to move, kind of demands a trade. I know he's just signed a contract and he's extremely well paid, but I'm telling you now, I'd give up a first and a second to get Devontae Adams at the New York Giants.
Yeah, I think that has to be a conversation because, as you say, he has said that he's there for one reason only. However, I'd like to see him move on from the Raiders already. I think 1 year's enough. I think he's wasted. Especially when you see weeks like this where you just think this guy is an alien, like he's just something else. He needs to be in the hands of a Mahomes or an Allen or a Burrow or something like that. Because if he was, he's going to be well, he's already probably Hall of Fame on his way, not necessarily there yet, but it would be very interesting.
He broke the Raiders reception record. He's been there 1 year. And he's the single season reception record. He broke it in that game with a game to go. So he's another level, isn't he?
Super special talent, and probably going to be wasted. But as you said, props to Stidham for having a good game in the front of a beast of a defense that is the Niners. So you never know. Devontae might end up having a good connection because they had a great connection in their first game. So we'll see what happens.
That's true.
Okay, and if we go to your AFC slap, then please.
I'm slapping the Texans franchise. I was going to pick a player, but there are so many to choose from that I would get a repetitive strain injury from slapping them all. So I'm just going to slap the whole franchise.
Dave, just to stop you there, we must be on a brand new page in 2023 because right in front of me for AFC, I've got signed Devontae Adams slap all of the Texans.
Yeah, they're garbage.
They
Davis Mills, 22 completions for 202 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Jeff Driscoll, 3 completions for 9 yards. They didn't have a rusher over 34 yards. They didn't have a receiver over 40 yards. They are garbage. They mustered a whole 3 points against the Jags. The Jags beat them 31-3. And I nearly slapped the Jags because the Jags started all of their starters in a game that meant nothing because they still have to play. So they play the Titans this week, and it's a winning in for whoever wins that game. So this game meant nothing. So they could have sat everybody, and even if they sat everybody, they would have still hung a 30 burger, I imagine, on the Texans.
Mm-hmm.
The Texans are god awful. They've got 2 wins, a draw, and however many losses, 13 losses or.
Yeah, 13 losses. Yeah,
13 and 1. They are a poverty franchise. They're that poor that African children that live out in the desert with nothing call them poor. That's how poor they are. They're awful. If you're a Texans fan, I apologize, and I feel for you because a Giants fan that has never seen the playoffs since 2016. I know how much it hurts to be shit, and you guys are the shittest of the shit.
They are, I would have to definitely say that as shit as the Giants may have been over the last 8-9 years that you've been watching, Dave, they've never been as shit as these Texans this year. They have been absolutely awful. 2 wins, which is generous, I think, and I know that they scraped both of those. They've got 13 losses and a draw, and it's not really even about the numbers. Like, it's just watching them, like we watch football because we enjoy it. We watch football because it's competitive. We watch football because it's exciting. The Texans have got absolutely none of that, nothing going for them whatsoever. And that's why, on my piece of paper right in front of me, exactly the same as you in the AFC today, Dave, the Texans just need to go. They need to get into that off season and do something humongous. They need to do something drastic. They definitely need to spend their first round pick that they will have, and they will have the first. I don't know whether they've clinched it yet or they haven't, but they'll have the first pick. I'm sure they need to get a quarterback. They need to stop messing around. They drafted a corner last year, and they could have took a quarterback.
Yeah, they're just. I could go on and on about how bad they are. They need a complete. And if you're bad, so bad consistently year after year after year, I know this coach they've got now. He needs to go like Black Santa with a long beard. he needs to go. Whoever the defensive coordinator is, he needs to go, and they just need to have a deep, dark look at themselves. In the last 3 years, they've had Deshaun Watson, who was great for them when he played for them. DeAndre Hopkins, who's a Hall of Famer. JJ Watt, who's a Hall of Famer. Larry Tunsil, who's a great tackle. Like this
big first round picks like Jadeveon Clowney, Whitney Merciless. They've had amazing.
They've let
players.
them all go. They're in Texas, which is basically a tax haven because they don't pay state tax. I don't understand. Like, if I was the NFL, I'd be saying this franchise needs to move. We said it before. Get them the flip out of Texas, send them somewhere else, and try and start it again as a new franchise because they're awful.
It's interesting that because I entirely agree. There's not a bit within me that thinks no, maybe the Texans just need a bit more time. I think that they are if there's a rebuild mode, they're made out of Lego and it's all over the floor and being trodden on. It's not even a shape right
No,
now. And
it's in the
as you
shop.
say,
It's
yeah,
in the shop, still on the shelf, inside a plastic bag, and probably in the back on a pallet. That's
yeah,
how far into rebuild they are.
absolutely. And so it makes perfect sense to just scrap it and start again. There's no point in competing in Texas with the Cowboys annoying a franchise they are. America's team. Texans just need to re-go. Never have I thought about that as a franchise either. I've never thought, oh, the Browns probably just need to move and restart, or oh, the Lions are that bad, they need to be relocated and rebranded. But the Texans definitely do.
Yeah.
So we've agreed on those two. Let's fly over to the NFC, Dave. Let's see if we're agreeing here. I don't know if we will. I hope we don't. But if you can give me your NFC sign.
I'm doing something that I shouldn't do. I'm signing Daniel Jones.
Oh my life! You could have just left it to me, because
Have
so am
you done it
I.
as well?
Yeah. Go on.
So we had a rule at the start of the season that you couldn't sign people from your own team,
I've done
as
it once.
obviously when you're signing people, you're bringing them into your team.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Jones has proved all the critics wrong. There's never been, like, I've never been off him. I've never wanted, if we were going to get like a Patrick Mahomes, I would prefer Patrick Mahomes to Daniel Jones. But I've never been, I don't think I have. I can't remember being a
I can
point.
attest to it. You have been a Daniel Jones ambassador since he walked through the door through what I would say were questionable times.
Oh, massively questionable. There's been times where I've thought about binning off being a Giants fan. It was that depressed every week watching them lose.
Yeah.
And I just wanted some love in my life.
But he's turning it around, isn't he? And that's why I'm signing him this week as well.
Yeah, like it was either him or Dayball. And what I've read a story today. This is how much of a good cunt Daniel Jones is. Yeah. When Dayball got there, he purposely schemed in the off season for Daniel Jones to be bad. So the plays that he would give Daniel Jones, he used to tell Wink Martindale, the defensive coordinator, what plays they were. So they'd pick him off, so they'd sack him, so they'd stuff the run, so he couldn't get anything going.
Right.
And for Tyrod Taylor, he would do the opposite. So Tyrod Taylor in practice looked better than Daniel Jones, and Brian Daboll was doing it as a challenge or as a test to see how Daniel Jones reacted to if things weren't going his way.
Right.
And he never once was like a Mardy fuck. He never like threw his toys out the pram. It's a story that came out today. Basically, a Giants insider has come out and said it.
Right.
He's always kind of stuck in there. He's had a few injury problems. He's had an issue with fumbles. The Giants this season, so the Giants have led the league for the last 3 years in giveaways. This year, they have the least of anybody in the league.
That's right. That's really good.
He's completely turned himself around, and I think the coaching's a lot to do with it, and the fact that they believe in him. Obviously, a healthy Saquon Barkley, we've upgraded the offensive line, but nobody's got worse wide receivers than us. Nobody in the league.
No.
Has got worse wide receivers than the Giants.
It's true.
Our top wide receiver is a bloke called Isaiah Hodgins.
Yeah, there's nobody there. I mean, as a Giants fan, absolutely, Dave. I can understand your passion. I can understand the reasons why getting behind Daniel Jones, and they are more apparent now than they ever have been. I'm not going to sit here and think that I think that he's all of a sudden going to become Joe Montana or even Josh Allen necessarily. But this week, passer rating of 125, 2 touchdowns through the air, 2 touchdowns on the ground himself, and 91 yards. I'm signing him this week because if he can do this 75% of the time, you've got a quarterback that is as good as Josh Allen. You know, you've got a quarterback that is going to be leading your team to playoff wins and things like that. I've not seen it as much as I need it to obviously be like, yeah, Danny Dimes is top 7 or whatever, but he's becoming that. And I think that's probably an even more exciting prospect as a Giants fan, is that you're now seeing what is he, 5th year, is he? 4th, 5th?
This is his 4th year.
So you're seeing a fourth-year quarterback now just start to find a little bit of rhythm. And sometimes it takes that long, sometimes it does. Rodgers,
Yeah.
Brady, not necessarily Brady, but certainly Rodgers sat behind Favre for a few years to earn his craft. They're totally different players, but if you can start reading the field, being careful with the football as Daniel Jones is, I think we always said it back in the days that, geez, if this guy stopped fumbling and losing them, then he'd win more games, and that's exactly what's happening. So yeah, I'm not obviously on the train, so to speak, but I think Daniel Jones has made leaps this season, and it'll be partly to do with Dable and partly to do with him.
He's never like he at best he's going to be a top 10 quarterback. At his ultimate prime, he's going to be a top 10 quarterback in the league. He's probably 10 to 20 at the minute of quarterbacks in the league. But he's just, I think it's the fact that, I mean, he's thrown for he's got like 23 total touchdowns, I think, this year, and 5 interceptions, which is a good start.
Yeah, very good.
If he rushes for, I think it's 7. If he rushes for 73 yards this week, he'll be one of 5 quarterbacks in NFL history with 3,000 passing yards and 800 rushing yards.
Wow.
So he's doing stuff that he's never going to be, like I say, he's never going to be Mahomes. He ain't ever going to be Allen. He's not got that kind of arm talent. But if he's managing to turn it around in a season where he's got zero help at tight end or at wide receiver, imagine what he can do if we go and trade for a Devontae Adams, a DeAndre Hopkins, an elite receiver.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is the exciting thing.
How's Rodgers look this year with no receivers?
Yeah, a lot worse. A lot worse. Certainly no MVP this year. MVP maybe, but yeah, no, you're right. And I think, again, as a Giants fan, from your perspective, you just have to look at that. And I'd be doing the same. I'd be saying, look, he's throwing to Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins. Like, these are nobodies. Like, and he's also winning games, and he's made the playoffs. So imagine what he can do if you throw him a couple of pieces to support him. It is exciting. And I think we'll talk about it later, because we've got the New Year's resolutions for the Giants and the Seahawks. So maybe we can talk a little bit about what might be coming in 2023, or what you might like to see. So final slap in the NFC for you.
Kirk Cousins. I'm a little bit disappointed now that we've not matched.
No, it's not. That's not what I've gone for. Sorry. 3 out of 4.
I feel like I'm a little bit disappointed, but hey,
he deserves it. I'll agree with you there.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins. These last 2 games were vital for the Vikings, because not only they made the playoffs and they've won the NFC North.
Yes.
They had the opportunity to capitalize on an Eagles loss and potentially become the number 1 seed, getting that vital bye in the playoffs. Not only did they shit the bed, not only did they have a shit with their pants on, they burnt down the entire house, man. They did a stinker. They got beat by the hapless Packers this year, who we've just talked about have looked beyond mediocre. And in pure Aaron Rodgers lizard way, he's going to creep his little way into the playoffs.
Of course he is.
He's even had a haircut, to have a haircut the same that he had in 2011 or 2010, whenever they won the Super Bowl. How pathetic is that?
What a moth.
Yeah. But we're not here to talk about how pathetic that individual is. Kirk Cousins, 18 completions for 205 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
They got blown out 41-17.
It's awful.
By the Green Bay Packers. And he did have 37 rush yards. Good for him.
Yeah, but it was all
awful.
panic. It was all panicky.
He turned into the Kirk Cousins that we all love. That if he doesn't start in the early window, he doesn't win.
Yeah.
He played. I don't think he played very well against the Giants, and he's definitely not played well against the Packers. And I think they've got the Bears this week with a backup quarterback, so they need to get it done this week.
I think they will, just because it's hard to not beat the Bears with Nathan Peterman at the helm, which is what's happening. But at the same time, you're absolutely right. I think the Vikings had an opportunity here to not just put themselves towards the top of the list of number one seed, but also what I think is probably even more important, and crush the life out of the team that's crushed the life out of them for the last 10 years. You know, like they had a chance to just put a statement down and say, Green Bay, you aren't making the playoffs and it's because of us. And they just can't do it. They're like the ultimate flop team. And that is hard to say when they are a team that has won what 10 or 11 games that have been within one score, and you would say that they're actually very clutch. But maybe when it actually comes down to the clutch, which it's coming down to right now, the Vikings are going to just take a shit with their pants on, as you say. I think it will happen because Kirk Cousins is just not that guy. Jefferson is that guy. Daniil Hunter's that guy. um their defense is or can be that guy, but Kirk Cousins is not. Dalvin Cook's that guy.
Yeah. It's a weird one. I just don't know where. I have no idea what they're gonna do in the playoffs. He's woeful, woeful at
I,
best.
like you say, I think the Packers sneak in, and if the Packers sneak in, they're the team to watch, not the Vikings. I don't think any team would be worried about playing the Vikings
No,
at all.
no, me neither.
Okay, that's it. Kirky Cousins, you like that? Gets a slap, and that's all of yours.
It is. And now moving on to your one and only NFC slap.
I know. I feel like you've robbed me here of all of my excitement, but we have aligned, and there's a reason for it because they're kind of undoubtable ones. So AFC, I slapped the Texans. AFC, I signed Devontae Adams. NFC, I signed Danny Dimes, Daniel Jones,
Vanilla Vic.
Vanilla Vic. Yeah, he is a bit of a plain Jane, but he's doing a good job. And so what leaves me left in the NFC is a slap. And this is a weird one because I'm turning it around. I'm slapping somebody who actually did really well. And I'm slapping Mike Evans for the Buccaneers.
Okay.
I'm slapping him because it's taken him 17 weeks to do anything of worth in the NFL this year. And as soon as he does it, everyone starts going, "Oh my God, Mike Evans is a Hall of Famer." And it's like, chill, Winston, because this year he has been a hot mess, full on garbage dumpster fire. And because he has one game, and it was a good game, 207 yards, 3 touchdowns, or something like that, it was a good game. He put a hurting on the Panthers. He blew out fantasy numbers. He probably won fantasy for many people this week who had Mike Evans. Me being me being one of them who's had him all year and decided to drop him this week. Um, I don't even regret it. You know, I'm not sat there thinking I didn't just bench him. I dropped him. Like, he's not in my team because he was just pissing me off. And I was thinking, how can you have a player that I took as my first receiver in the draft not perform for you in fantasy that way? And more importantly, in the actual league itself, he's had Tom Brady all year throwing at him. I think he's had 1,000 yards this season somehow, but it's been the quietest 1,000 yards you've ever seen. He's had some games where he's been entirely ruled out or entirely locked down by some corners. And I used to like the guy, and I don't think I do anymore. He's Mardy. He throws his skinny little weight around like he thinks he's a big job. And I won't be drafting him again in fantasy. I know that. That's for sure. Even if he's left on the board in round 9, I won't go for him because he's annoyed me. And I think that he just needs a reality check. He was giving it the absolute Larry Large after that game. And if I had 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, I probably would as well. But I'd also be thinking, hold on a minute. What have I also not done this year? The Bucks have been a absolutely terrible offense this year. And all of a sudden, they're also in the playoffs, and Tom Brady could win another Super Bowl. Could happen.
I will kill myself if it is a Bucks Packers NFC Championship game.
Mm.
Mike Evans is a weird one because, like you say, he's done nothing. He's done nothing all year. I feel like your slap may be coming from a fantasy, a frustrated fantasy slap.
Do
But
you reckon?
in
Maybe.
fairness, the guy's done absolutely wind all year, apart from this game, and he was about. In fairness to him, he probably deserves the recognition and the time that we're taking to speak about him because he was phenomenal.
Mm.
250+ yard touchdowns, and then another one. But no, he has been a bit of a non-factor all year. Again, it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. If Brady leaves there, will he has to go somewhere else? Will they trade? Will they trade their pieces and start to go a bit younger and see what they can get?
If Brady doesn't go back to the Bucs, I think he's one of those types of players that you'd look at and go, let's get some value out of him whilst we've got him, because I don't think he's one of those that is integral. Like, he's integral to the Buccaneers' success at the moment for sure, but I think that he's an expendable piece for a reasonable pick. So, for example, like let's say for the Giants, you don't have a number one wide receiver. Imagine a 6'5", still very, very fast and agile and big-bodied receiver in the likes of Mike Evans. You'd probably love it.
Yeah, I think I would rather have Godwin than him.
Okay.
But only because I think Mike Evans is a bit more of a one-trick pony. He's not the kind of guy you can play in the slot.
Mm.
He's kind of your downfield 6'5" threat.
Sure.
So I think I would rather have Godwin. But
okay. I mean, imagine him going somewhere like the Chiefs.
Yeah. I've just had a bad experience with a 6'5" receiver that was good on one team. I think I'm a little bit over them now.
You don't want to get burnt twice. I get you.
Definitely not.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I think that Mike Evans could serve a very distinct purpose elsewhere and still be worth his weight in a decent draft pick. And without Brady, the Buccaneers are nothing. So
yeah, it'd be interesting. I don't know what his. I'm just gonna have a look now. Actually, his Mike Evans contract is.
I reckon it'll be fairly team friendly. But yeah, I'm slapping Mike Evans. It's like a slap/sign, but it's definitely a slap because he's deserved it all season, and so we're finishing with one, and that's that.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Good stuff. Now we will move into our speed recap of the games of last week, and there was many. We spoke about the Cowboys on Thursday night taking on the Titans in a forgettable affair. The Cowboys beat the Titans 27-13. Dak Prescott played a good game with 282 yards and 2 touchdowns, and CeeDee Lamb seems to have found just some life within the Cowboys offense. I think he's definitely playing better than I thought he could. 11 receptions for 100 yards. He seems to be Dak Prescott's go-to man when he needs a first down or when he needs those big yards to score touchdowns, and Lamb's there. The Titans have just fell off an absolute wagon. I think they've lost 8 on the bounce. It might be 7, but they're now 7-9 when they were atop of their division at one point with 7 wins. And they've lost a lot on the bounce. And I think that actually the Titans need to have another team that needs to have a good look in the mirror and try to understand what they're hoping to achieve. Henry's been injured. They've got a average quarterback in Tannehill. They've drafted Malik Willis, but then they've brought in another quarterback to start ahead of him that wasn't Tannehill, and that makes me just question what they do think that they've even got in Malik Willis now. Also makes me very happy that the Seahawks didn't take him. And yeah, the Cowboys are 12-4. That division in the East is looking tasty, and they're in the playoffs, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, anything to say about the boys, Dave?
No, I don't know. I just feel like they're such a bogey team for the Giants. I really don't. I don't want to see them in the. I would rather play the Vikings and the 49ers than play the Cowboys and the Eagles. And
It's difficult
ironically,
playing
it
a
looks
divisional
like
team.
we're going to be playing the Niners now
It's
or
not
the
an easy game.
Vikings.
I think it's the Vikings as it stands, but
Yeah, I'd rather play the Vikings first. But ultimately, if you're going to get the ultimate prize, then you need to go through them all. But
you know,
the Cowboys are looking themselves on offense. The
Mm.
defense is pretty good. The Titans are just wowzers. What are they?
Wowzers, poop in your trousers.
And there's a chance. I'd much rather see the Jags in the playoffs than the Titans. So
Oh, me
hopefully
too.
the Jags get the job done this weekend. Trevor
Absolutely.
Lawrence can hopefully get amongst it.
Definitely. We then moved into Sunday after the Thursday night game. The Cardinals, poopy, played the Falcons, poopy. This was a close one, far closer than it needed to be, but the players playing in this game just god awful. David Blau at quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals, Desmond Ridder as quarterback for the Falcons. They had a running back in Algier or something like that who's looking quite good, but there was nothing in this game that was remotely entertaining nor worthwhile. And for some reason, I think Scott Hansen on the red zone spent loads of time on it, and it was just like, get this off the screen. It's got no implications to playoffs. It's got no players that you want to watch playing in it. Let's move. So the Cardinals lost to the Falcons, which is even more of a tragedy, because the Falcons are a really bad team, but the Cardinals are clearly also not good. So 4-12 are the Cardinals now in the NFC West, and the Falcons are 6-10. In the NFC South. The Bears played the Lions, and this was a pounding by the Lions. Massive regret on one of our mates, and actually Lil Cam, who's been on the podcast, was questioning whether to start Jared Goff instead of Aaron Rodgers in fantasy against me this week, and it would have been much of a better choice to start Goff, because he was on fire against the Bears, 255 yards, 3 touchdowns. The Lions were just putting up points for fun against the Bears. Jamal Williams and is it Devontae Swift? What's his name? Is it Swift? Damian Swift? Devontae Swift? I'm not too sure. I'm probably wrong with both of those, but
Yeah, I think you are.
Yeah. What's his name now? It's going to kill me.
Swift.
I think it's. I want to say it's Devontae.
It's not Devontae.
Not Devontae Swift.
That's Devontae Smith.
DeAndre.
DeAndre Swift, yeah.
DeAndre Swift.
You were close.
I was not far off.
They're all human names you're using.
The apostrophes were in the wrong place, but both running backs had a great game, and I think the Lions, they're at 8-8, so they're at 500. They can still make the playoffs if they beat the Green Bay Packers. I don't want to say they're a good team, because during this podcast we have said that they've lined things up many times this year, and they've obviously lost 8 games, but they're beginning to look like quite a good team.
Yeah, I feel like they can score points at will. Hopefully, the will of that will dump all over the Packers.
I hope so as well, because I think that the one thing that the Packers did against the Vikings was pressure. They came at Kirk Cousins with everything, and the Lions have got a seriously good offensive line. Seriously really good. So if they can protect Goff, then they won't make Jair Alexander look like Darrelle Revis, because he's definitely not, by the way. No. And hopefully the Lions will put some points up on the Packers. But yeah, they dumped on the Bears. The Bears are terrible. They're so terrible that they're now starting Nathan Peterman, and I think they've just chalked this season up to probably having the second pick in the draft. The Broncos kept it close against the Chiefs this week, much closer than the week before, where they get pissed all over in the first half and then tried to claw their way back. But this time they played the Broncos and they kept it close. So the Broncos lost 24-27 against the Chiefs. Chiefs are now 13-3. The Broncos are 4-12. Patrick Mahomes just does what he needs to every week. He does more than he needs to. He's a quarterback that anybody would want in their franchise. 328 yards, 3 touchdowns. It wasn't the most spectacular performances, but that's Mahomes. he threw for 3 touchdowns, Dave, and people are going, oh, I want a great game. I mean, fucking come on. I'd take 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, he obviously I've got him in fantasy, and I was like, it's like that meme, where like the stick man's got the stick and he's poking something and going, do something. That's what I was like, fucking Mahomes, do something.
Yeah.
But yeah, he still did the biz. I'm expecting this week a really big performance from Mahomes.
Right.
I think
Sure up the MVP.
Yeah, 100%. Not just, and also to make sure that the Chiefs have got every possible reason to be the number 1 pick, not the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
And then it's up to the Bills and the Bills and the Chiefs to do something that will ultimately take the Chiefs out of that thing. But there'll be no way he's leaving it to chance.
No, he's going to do the
I'm not
business.
sure who they're playing this week, actually.
I think it's the Raiders.
So on Saturday it is the Raiders, yeah.
So yeah, he's chalked up to have a potentially big game. And the Broncos, Russell Wilson probably played his best game this year for the Broncos this week. He wasn't awful. He was really trying. I think he ran in for 2 touchdowns, or he at least ran in for 1. The team was sort of getting behind him. I could see a little bit of a spark of morale sort of picking up in Russell Wilson's eyes, and it's something that I've not seen for a while. He played with a little bit of fire, and so if that's the way he's going to come out next season, maybe things will change. Maybe we'll see. The Patriots played the Dolphins. Both teams are now 8-8, with the Patriots beating the Dolphins 23-21. This was a very average game. Not a lot happened to be of note, but I think that the surprise was that the Patriots did beat the Dolphins. Actually, Teddy Bridgewater was in for the Dolphins, but Mac Jones never looks particularly good ever. But he still did
games.
enough.
It's annoying how Bob average he is, but he wins games.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's it. The Patriots got the W here against the Dolphins that were at one point this year on fire, and they were a quiet, dark horse for the playoffs.
They were 8-3.
Wow. Yeah.
What they're now 8-7.
8-8. 8-8.
8-8. Well, there you go.
It's a fall from grace. So we'll see what happens. I'm not too sure about their playoff implications, but I know that they can, or maybe they've both been eradicated now, have they?
No, the Dolphins. I think they could both still make it. Oh, okay. No. I think.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
No. One team that we know that can't make the playoffs is the team that played the New York Giants this week, and that is the Indianapolis Colts. They got pumped by Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes. It's why he got assigned this week. 38 to the Giants, 10 to the Colts. It's more about what the Giants could do as opposed to what the Colts couldn't do. But at the same time, 10 points, garbage points as well for the Colts. They didn't look like doing a single thing against the Giants. It was a nice clinical win for them. The Saints beat the Eagles this week, which was a huge upset, albeit they had Gardner Minshew in at quarterback, did the Eagles. But I still would have I didn't put money on this week, but I still would have put money on the Eagles beating the Saints.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the playoff. So the Patriots can still make it. Titans can. Steelers can.
Dolphins can't.
No, the Dolphins can as well. So the Dolphins the Dolphins are sat in that 7th spot. So it's a tie between the Patriots, Steelers, and Dolphins.
Okay. So big games this week then.
Yeah, the Titans can get in if they beat the
Jags.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good to know. There we go, listeners. There's still life left in any of your respective teams if you support one of those, Dolphins, Patriots, etc. But the light is out for the Saints, even though they got the win against the Eagles. They this is not a score that I expected. The Eagles only scored 10 points. Gardner Minshew just looked baffled most of the game. And the Saints also didn't look fantastic. So 20-10, Saints win. Eagles still atop of the NFC, but still being chased. The Panthers played the Bucs and they took an early lead 14-point lead against the Buccaneers, and Tom Brady did what Tom Brady does, and he came back with a very, very impressive game, I suppose, or 3 quarters. He threw for 45 attempts, 34 passes for 432 yards, 3 touchdowns. Mike Evans had nearly half of those at 207 and 3 touchdowns. And the Bucs did just enough to do what they needed to do to beat the Panthers, to sit atop of the NFC South, make the playoffs. That's clinched now. They're in. Tom Brady could legitimately win another Super Bowl.
He's the man who just won't go away. He won't just give us what we all want and just retire.
No, he still could win a Super Bowl. And I'd have to say somebody else did it to him at 8-8. Eli Manning.
Yeah,
and Tom Brady could definitely do it to someone else. I would not at this point now count the Buccaneers out of making the NFC Championship.
No, their team is far too talented. If they just switch it on for the playoffs, 4 games.
Yeah.
I still don't think he'd retire.
No, I don't think. I think he'll go somewhere. I think he's going to go somewhere, but we'll see. In the offseason will be an interesting one. The Commanders got beat by the Browns this week, 24-10. Really not anything worth talking about in that one, apart from the fact that the Commanders are now out of playoff contention. The Browns have been out for a while, so nothing happening. The Jags can still make it in after a win against the Texans. They are now 8-8. A lot of 8-8 teams at the moment. The Texans we've covered already in Slap or Sign. They got beat 31-3. Texans have got no hope. Jags have got all the hope available. The Niners won 37-34 against the Raiders in an absolute classic game where there's just players balling out everywhere. Devontae Adams, Christian McCaffrey, Jarek Stidham, all these players. I can't take it seriously by saying Stidham, but certainly Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, all doing amazing things. And the Raiders did a really good job of keeping up with the Niners, but a dub is a dub. You shit out Raiders, you've lost another one. Niners are 12-4. 12.
Crazy, isn't it?
I'd have not said that. Yeah.
They've got such a good team.
They do. I wouldn't have said 12 wins at the start of the season, though, would you do? Would you have said that they would be going into the final week at 12-4?
Not before the season. And they certainly wouldn't be there now if they had Trey Lance. I think they've had better quarterback play from Garoppolo and whatever this goon is that they've got at quarterback now. But
Brock Purdy.
I'd be playing Brock Purdy next year as well.
I would as well. Me too.
And the team have bought into him, so
yeah. The Vikings beat the Packers. Sorry, the Packers beat the Vikings. They wish. The Packers beat the Vikings 41-17. We've covered that. The Vikings stunk in this game. The Packers did what they needed to do, smashed it on the ground and pounded the Vikings till there was nothing left. 41-17. Packers at 8-8. Playoff hopefuls are still alive. Probably going to make the playoffs, knowing the Packers, because they only have to beat the Lions. Vikings are in the playoffs, but they're going to be one and done. We all know it. The Rams played the Chargers, Battle of LA, and it was not a battle, it was a battering. Chargers won 31-10. Justin Herbert threw for 2 touchdowns. Mike Williams, receiver for the Chargers, had a bit of a welcome back to the party with nearly 100 yards, just some big catches. Amazing catch, worth watching on YouTube. Yeah. One of the best catches this season, where he just caught it with one hand, still spun, toe tapped, out of bounds. Amazing. There
was some really good catches this week.
Highlight reels.
He's massively underrated. That kid is.
Yeah, he needs to probably go somewhere better, right?
Well, that's what I mean about the Chargers. They've got Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and they seem to struggle. I don't say they struggle every week, but they don't. They don't demolish teams, do they?
No, they don't. This was a reality check for the Rams again, I think, because Baker Mayfield had just come off a high. This is what he does, doesn't it? He plays good, plays bad, plays good, plays bad. It's the Baker Mayfield cycle, but he didn't have a good one. Only 10 points for the Rams this week and 31 for the Chargers. The Steelers played the Ravens in a old Steelers Ravens classic, literally low scoring, boring, defensive affair that had not a lot happen in it. And the Steelers won 16-13, keeping their playoff hopes alive, and the Ravens were already in anyway. So, those two teams, for the fact that those two teams, one is in the playoffs and one is now likely to be in, knowing the Steelers, I think that's poor. I don't think either of those teams have played well for 3/4 of the season.
So stinky are the Ravens without Lamar Jackson. And the Steelers have to be the most boring team in football.
Got to be.
They've got to be the most boring team in football. Najee Harris is 4% of what they thought he was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
He's beyond average. Pickens
is bad.
No, Pickens is good. Pickett is bad.
Oh yeah, Pickens the receiver is good, but I don't think he's that good.
I don't think Pickett's that. He looked good in that game. He was making catches all over the place.
Right.
So I think he's definitely a good thing for them. But Pickett I think he's like Mac Jones. There's no panache to him, no pizzazz. He's just a bit meh.
Yeah, he is a bit meh. Yeah, I think the last 2 weeks the Steelers have not. I'm not sure they've broken a record, but they were near to setting a record for most plays on a drive. I think they had a 20 play, 62-yard drive.
That's awful.
Yeah, I think they scored on it, which is at least a benefit. But like 20 plays to go 40
yards. The
defense
probably fell asleep.
Unbelievable.
Defense is probably napping because they've been bored to death.
Literally playing the real game like Cam plays Madden.
Yeah.
Unreal.
A 60-yard, 20-play drive averaging 3 yards per play.
That finishes with a field goal.
God above.
Yeah, not good. So sorry about that, Cam, but that's your Madden vibes. That's it. And then we had the game on Monday night that obviously got stopped in the first quarter. That was 3 to the Bills, 7 to the Bengals before we had the major injury issue with Damar Hamlin. So that is yet to be played. And that was all of the games this week. And we have one more week of red zone left, one more proper week of football on a Sunday, and also some games being played on Saturday, which is great because we get a double weekend, Dave. But this season's gone so fast. It's gone too quick.
Yeah, it has. And I mean, I'm so glad that it's extended by a week for the Giants.
Yeah.
And just to be back playing playoff football is
something
new for me, obviously, and then hopefully it's a sign of things to come. And it's not over for the Seahawks. It is not over for the Seahawks. If the Lions beat the Packers, the Seahawks are in. As long as
we win. Yeah. So I didn't cover that game, but we just beat the Jets. So the final game that I didn't cover was the fact that we just beat the 7-8 Jets. And we are now 8-8 as the Seahawks. We beat them 23-6. It was a convincing win, well-rounded win on defense. And Kenny Walker had 133 on the ground, which was good to see. The Jets just our defense came to play. And it's weird because we have weeks where our defense is shocking, then it comes to play. And then it's shocking, then it comes to play. So we just need some consistency, and we could be a pretty good team. And we could still make the playoffs, Dave, as you said.
Yeah.
Obviously, as a Seahawks fan, I would like to see us in the playoffs. I do think we would get bounced immediately because we're not as good as most of the teams that are in there. However, it would be nice to see.
You've got to be in it to win it.
Yeah.
I think that you're in a very fortunate position whereby if you make the playoffs, it doesn't really affect your draft stock because you're relying on the fact that the Broncos are going to have such a woefully bad pick that's where your sort of draft value is, and you can still pick up a good piece with a 20th pick, which is probably what around there is what you'd have for being in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I
No,
think that
absolutely.
obviously you had the bad news about Jordan Brooks, which we've not mentioned, tearing
No.
his ACL, which
Yeah.
is bad news. The standout linebacker for the Seattle Seahawks went down. He was off the field as well. Like it was he tackled somebody and then kind of saw it go on the TV. But that's obviously bad news. But
it's bad news for playoffs. That doesn't help our chances whatsoever. If we were to make the playoffs, you know, I think he's the third most. He's got the third most tackles in the NFL this year, which is obviously a great stat to have. And he's been a very sure pair of hands in the backfield to cover. But yeah, I personally think, if my honest truth, I mean, I'll talk about it in a minute. Let's get there. But the Seahawks won 23-6 against the Jets. Big win. Playoff hopeful still alive. And we now move into a final segment, which is based on the new year. It's 2023. Everything's fresh. People are starting resolutions, getting back in the gym, unless you're tubby like me, and I need to. But we are starting we're gonna give a segment right now called New Year, New Me. And Dave, I want to know what you think the New York Football Giants New Year, New Me resolutions should be.
So I've got three. I don't know if it's a wish list or a resolution. I'll try and phrase it as a resolution. So a resolution for them would be to tie up their star player. So the star player for the New York Giants, the face of the franchise, is Saquon Barkley. They need to sign him, and they need to sign Daniel Jones to multi-year deals. Daniel Jones, I'm thinking something like a 4-year, £25 million deal. Even if you have to fully guarantee it to sell it to him, it is way below the asking price for starting quarterback. And if he can get into the playoffs every year, then I'm more than happy with that. And Saquon, just give him whatever he wants, man. We need that bell cow back. So I would say my New Year's resolution for the Giants is to just invest in the stars you've currently got.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. I think both of them do need contracts for sure. Danny Dimes, like you say, you might get something light. Saquon, yeah, I wouldn't go as far as necessarily pay him. I don't think he should be paid more than, say, McCaffrey, I think, who's got the biggest deal at the moment. But
I wouldn't want anything near 20 million. I'd say if you can sign him for 12 to 15, with Daniel Jones being on a lighter deal as a quarterback, then you do it. You sign them both up.
Yeah,
and I think
for sure.
Both of them but I think both of them want to be in New York. So
why not? It's a good place to be. It's a good place to be. Okay, shall I do one of my Seahawks resolutions? So my first Seahawks resolution will be to keep doing what you're doing. And that's, I'm going to delve a bit deeper into it than rather be so ambiguous, but I was trying to think, what do I want the Seahawks to do? What's a resolution? What should they change? And actually, putting the whole year into perspective, not a lot. So my first thing would be keep doing what we're doing. And what we've done this year is draft really well. So keep drafting really well. And actually, I want my Seahawks to go big in the draft. We've got 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, 2 third-round picks, and then whatever else we've got as our normal picks. That's a haul for this year. And if we can hit on some of the pieces like we did last year, we could really build our team. Now, what I would like to see us do, and this is not necessarily a resolution, I'm going to phrase it that way, but my resolution would be to take some chances and trade up in the draft. So we're probably going to have a top 3 pick. With that top 3 pick, we can take a quarterback. I want them to. Doesn't necessarily mean he needs to start ahead of Geno, but I want them to take a quarterback with the first 3 picks that they've got, or with the first pick that they have that would be in the top 3. I then don't want us to wait for a 20th if we're in the playoffs, or maybe a 17th. I want us to then go, right, we've got 2 second round picks. We've also got 2 first rounds next year. What can we do? We need a defensive lineman. We need to get to the quarterbacks. That's the one thing that we need. We need a pass rush. We just don't quite have it yet. I'd go and get a defensive lineman, probably a defensive tackle that's going to penetrate. I think there's a good one in the draft. I'd trade up and go get it. Go have 2 top 5 or 7 or 10 picks. Go early, quarterback, and a defensive menace.
So would you be willing to sacrifice your first round pick next year to move up this year? Because that's what it's going to cost you. Especially, if you want to move
with a second round pick,
not a
that's
chance.
Top, no,
not a chance. If you, from the experience of seeing what we've got from teams when we've traded back,
yeah,
it's always, if you want to move up in the first round into that top 10 area, you're given a first round pick from next year.
Okay.
I think what's more likely, because there's a defensive tackle or a defensive end who's projected to be the number 3 pick, I can see you taking him first.
Right. And then maybe trying to do something with the quarterbacks that are remaining.
I mean, yeah, I think the way they'll look at it is, unless you're Joe Burrow or you're Trevor Lawrence, these consensus number 1 picks that are so generationally good that you have to take them. What have the rest of them done?
Yeah, true.
The likes of Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Zach Wilson. They've all been meh quarterbacks.
Yeah,
you don't want to hand your franchise over to somebody like that. So I think there's a strong possibility you won't take a quarterback.
Okay.
Not with them first few picks. I think that he's probably happy with what Geno gives, and if he can give Geno a better offensive line, and then shore up your defense, which is obviously where you're leaking points, maybe that's what they'll do. But I like what you're thinking. Yeah. I like the fact that, because I've been there. Do you know what I mean? I've been in them picks. We've had the number 2 pick where we took Saquon, the number 5 pick or 6 pick where we took Daniel Jones. I've been there. You know, we had 2 in the top 10 last year when we took Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeau. It's nice when you take these splash players, but sometimes you have to take boring picks to build your team. So
it's true.
We'll see.
We'll see. But yeah, I mean, it's just it's a thing for me. I think I'd like to see us go, go in and go hard whilst you've got all those picks to play with. But okay, 100%. Cool. Next resolution.
So for my next one,
it's
going to tie in a little bit with the first one, but I want a New Year's resolution for the Giants is to be more aggressive in pursuing people. So we're a team where we seem to trade our stars or trade our picks to accumulate more draft capital. However, we're the third biggest cap space going into next year. I would like to see us trade for a wide receiver, an elite skill player. So I'm not talking about I don't know who's a Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
No.
I mean, I don't want to trade for somebody like that. No. I want to trade for one of these quarterbacks, one of these wide receivers that's at these teams. So an elite receiver that's at a bad-ish team, a la DeAndre Hopkins or a Devontae Adams. A really, really high-end wide receiver. Give him, if it's going to take a first-round pick, you give him a first-round pick.
Yeah.
And we get this superstar receiver so
that's
that we
proven.
can pair them with Saquon, Daniel Jones, and we can do some damage next year.
Okay. Yeah. I think that is what you need for sure. I think that should be a resolution for the Giants, is do something about that wide receiver room. I think, again, thinking from your perspective as a Giants fan, it would be nice to go out and get one of those world-beating receivers. Devontae Adams is just another level of potential. If you were to get him, that would be like proper crispy sock on the end of your bed type scenario for you, Dave. But I think even getting somebody like DeAndre Hopkins, who's maybe a little bit over the hill, but still very good. You could probably get him for maybe a second, maybe a third, and something else. Or you could have the likes of somebody like a Mike Evans, a Godwin, a Higgins from the Bengals. That I know you're not saying that you don't want those types of players. You want a mega star, but maybe you just need to go a bit better because you're already doing so well with nothing. So yeah, who knows? But I can understand why you'd want Devontae Adams.
Yeah, fucking
Who
right.
wouldn't? Good stuff. Okay, I've only got one more, and this is we're really on a very similar page here, and that is impact players in free agency for the Seahawks. So we also have a fair amount of cap space. I think we've got fifth most next year. We don't have many players to pay. I want to see us go into free agency and just shore things up. I don't want to see any big splash players in free agency. I want safety. I want to build our offensive line to be a bit better because it's already a lot better than it was. I think another guard or a better center in there would be great. I want another linebacker to pair with Jordan Brooks. Hopefully, fingers crossed, he can be healthy because Cody Barton has been good this year, but he's not a good player. Just so you know, I know he's been on the Seahawks for many years, and the guy is off a practice squad. He's not great. He's not great. He's played well, but I'm just thinking if Cody Barton can look good next to Brooks, imagine a Milano or imagine a old school Blake Martinez, something like that. And that's what I want. I want a tackle machine in the middle. So I just want to shore things up so that we don't get ran on so much, and so that Gino's got a bit more time and we can get the run game going with Big Kenneth. I just want us to go slow and steady, impact the free agency with core players.
No, I get it. And when you're in a, I don't want to say you're in a rebuild because I don't think you are. I think you're, if you was in a rebuild, you're at the end of it. Like you've lost Russell Wilson, but I think you've got some trade assets. I think because somebody will take Jamal Adams.
Yeah, not even spoke
Because
about him.
I don't think you need
yeah.
him. I know we talked about him off air, I suppose, if you want to call that, but it's a weird situation, I think. But I mean, Blake Martinez retired. You probably could have had him, but
yeah, I just mean that kind of player. There's
I
going
get
to
what
be
you're saying,
somebody out there. There's a potential, as we said before, that we could convert the likes of Jamal Adams into a bit more of a tackling, roaming linebacker, I suppose, that can drop into coverage. But I just want to see us do something with the money we've got. When you're not paying a Russell Wilson, if we are paying Gino, if that's what we're doing, and we're going to have some spare money and we're going to roll with him for a couple of years, use the money somewhere, to like give him more of a chance. And I also want us to, I didn't mention it earlier, but I also want us to go early. We've got 2 first-round picks, obviously, 2 first-round picks, 2 second. I want us to use one of our second-round picks, which will be in the top 5 of the second round on a wide receiver. And it probably sounds weird, but I just think that it'd be a good time to build our receiver room because outside of DK and Lockett as receivers go, we haven't really got a lot at all. And Lockett is twilight years heading his way. So go early on a receiver, start building them up. 3-headed dragon.
Like it. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, good. 2. Nice. So new year, new me, Seahawks Giants, listen up, make sure you tune into the podcast and understanding what me and Dave want, because that's what it's all about. So thank you everybody for listening. We apologize that we were away last week, but sickness and Christmas combined is a tough one to get through. We will be covering the final games of the NFL season next week and then rolling into the playoffs. Hopefully have some special content for you around the playoff time, some competitions. We've got some prizes to win, have we not, Dave?
We have.
Some prizes to be won, in the end zone prizes, NFL merchandise prizes. We're going to get that going around the playoff and Super Bowl time. Keep your ears open and eyes peeled on Instagram. Follow us at In the End Zone UK. Thank you very much for listening. Peace.
Have a good one.